So if you want to hear a story about why my lighting isn't quite as good as it normally is, and what happened during my last review for The House and the Clock in the Walls, what happened between me filming it and the 3 hours it took to then edit it, it involves a lot of blood and me being unconscious on a hospital floor. If you want to hear that story, stick around until the score, and I'll tell a little story at the end of the review because I like oversharing.
Put the button back in the box.
Starring amongst others Boyd Holbrook, Travanti Rhodes, Jacob Tremblay, Keegan-Michael Kay, Olivia Munn, Thomas Jane, Alfie Allen and Sterling K. Brown, directed by Shane Black off of a screenplay that he wrote alongside Fred Decker. This is my rather late review of The Predator. So this review is a little bit later than I normally like. I was away last week in Mallorca, so I couldn't see this when it came out. I only got to see it yesterday, and I had an inkling that it wasn't the best movie. Just so you know, with my reviews, I don't tend to watch any other reviewers. There's quite a few YouTubers I do watch, but I don't watch them until I've done my own review. So all I had to know that this wasn't a particularly good film was just a few of the scores that I've seen around on places like IGN, for example. So I'd seen review scores, but I hadn't seen exactly what the problems were with the movie. But quite a lot of the time I can go and see a film, and even if it's not got great reviews, I still find a lot of things that I enjoy about it. So I was still hopeful. Until about halfway through this, when I kind of gave up and realised that, yep, this sucks. But let's get on to what it's about first. So Quinn McKenna comes across a predator and he steals a lot of its tech and he sends it to his family home because he's a great father. The child there, played by Jacob Tremblay, activates something and then predators start descending on him and they have to fight them off. And let me start by saying that this is a Shane Black movie. Shane Black at least half wrote this and directed it, and his movies, the thing you can always take from a Shane Black movie is how strong the script are. His characters are always so nuanced, there are always so many layers to them, and they're always funny and endearing. He's so good with writing characters. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, the Lethal Weapon movies, Nice Guys from a couple of years ago, and I'm even a strong defender of Iron Man 3. So when I heard that he was coming on board to do a Predator movie, I was so excited. I was so excited to watch this, but when you actually see the movie, there's nothing really in it to say that it was written by Shane Black at all. It could have been written by anybody. This is such a generic and bland movie filled with characters that it's almost impossible to care about, even in the slightest. And I think for me, one of the biggest problems with it comes from the fact that it's trying so hard to be like the original Predator movie. Shane Black, of course, was in that movie, and it seems, I think he's actually said that he's trying to relive the memories of that film, but that doesn't make for a good movie now. The original Predator movie was so full of quips and just ultra manliness, like that handshake between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers will always go down as one of the best handshakes ever. And the jokes were rude and crude, but they worked then because, well, it was the 80s. It was a very different time for movies. But the characters themselves, they functioned well within the plot because when things started to go sideways, when things went south for them, they were really scared of what was happening, and they were still, get to the chopper, ain't got time to bleed. They were still making all these quips, but you could tell that they were genuinely afraid of this hunter, this predator that was coming after them. In this one, you really don't. They are just joking about so much of the time that there doesn't feel to be any kind of threat from this thing whatsoever, which seems strange to say because you have this predator and predator dog and larger predator like causing carnage left, right and centre, and that's some of the strongest bits of the movie is watching the predator do its thing, watching it just take people apart. Like that aspect of the movie does work, that is fun to see, but the actual characters themselves, I don't care what happens to them because for the most part it doesn't seem like they care. If the characters in a film themselves aren't scared of the thing, we're not going to be scared of the thing. We have to fear it through their fears. We have to be scared along with them. And yeah, they're not in this. There's moments where they seem a bit concerned, sure, but it's always just like, let's go fight the predator, rather than, oh god, we've got to go up against a predator. And what really is there to any of these characters? I think the two standouts for me are Olivia Munn and Sterling K. Brown. And neither of those characters are particularly good. Yvonne Strahovski is really good in this one, but she's given so little to do. And in fact, so are they. Like, all of the characters just kind of exist in this movie. They're just sort of there. Some of the performances, like the ones I just mentioned, like they're good. They do all they can do with what limited stuff they've actually got to work with. But there's not one character in this film that I genuinely cared about. that I cared about in the slightest, in fact. They're all just so bland, so generic. I mean, for example, there's a character in this one, Thomas Jane's character, who has Tourette's. Why does he have Tourette's? Because occasionally he can swear randomly or say the odd inappropriate thing. It's just so lazy. It's such a lazy thing to do. We've seen that time and time again, and to be honest, Tourette's just isn't really that funny to me anymore. Like, the only time I think it can be is if you have somebody with Tourette's themselves actually making a joke out of their situation. Like, I think that sort of comedy can work well, but just to have Shane Black just write this character as having Tourette's just because Tourette's is funny, as I say, it's lazy. It's so beneath somebody with the writing talents of Shane Black. I don't understand why he thought it was a good idea to do. And it's telling that that's the least of the problems, really, here. Every character has their own little quirk, their own little thing about them, but nothing that they do makes them likeable, makes them worth caring about, and when they inevitably start getting killed off, it's just, yeah, okay, there they go. And compare that to the first Predator. I cared about all of these characters. It sucked to see them die, but it was also awesome at the same time. There was something sort of frightening and just terrifying about that first Predator movie, and this one just dilutes it so much. And my goodness, does this film look bad in places. The Predator dogs, for example, they look unfinished. And there's lots of moments like that where the CGI just doesn't look like it's been completed yet, and they've just gone, fuck it, let's just release it anyway. I just don't understand how that can be a finished product. I don't understand how that can make the final cut. Like, people had to look at that and just go, this is awful, we can't release that. But the only thing I can think of is that with the reshoots, they were just so far over budget that by that point they couldn't fix it. They just couldn't justify the extra expense. But man, it really shows on the screen. This is a cheap looking movie at times. Not all the time. There are moments where it looks great. The Predator itself, both of them, like, they look good. They look like we know the Predator to look. They look menacing. But that doesn't help when they're not really used all that well. So overall, The Predator is a real disappointment. Probably one of the biggest disappointments of the year, I think, for me. I don't think it's one of the worst movies of the year, but certainly of films that I was looking forward to. Like, this is so bad compared to what I built it up to be in my head. Like, this should have been the return to form for the Predator franchise. This should have been the one that re-invitalized it, that got us excited for another one. And after this, I don't think we're even going to get another Predator movie, certainly not in Shane Black's trilogy plan, and to be honest, it's for the best. I'm not interested in seeing another one of these. I think it's time to let the Predator franchise die, because really, for me, the only really good one is the first one. Like, that one is still rewatchable. I rewatched it in the run-up to this one. It's still great. Yeah, I'm not interested in seeing where this goes, and it's just so ridiculous that this one sets up a sequel so blatantly at the end as well. It's not going to happen. It's not going to get one. I'm going to give The Predator a 4 out of 10. Much lower than I wanted to give this film. I was so looking forward to it. I really thought this was going to be good, but yeah, what a disappointment. Have you seen The Predator? If so, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. And now for my story. So when I did the House with the Clock in its Walls review, you may have noticed that the lighting wasn't great. It was like this. Like, it's not as good as it normally is. I normally have a sort of really good light shining down on me. That's where the problem started. The lamp fell a minute into the review, so I had to restart the review and do it without the lamp on. After I'd done the review, I loaded up Premiere Pro, I imported all the files, I was ready to edit, and I just thought, well, I'll have a look at this bulb and see if I can get it working again, because they're not the cheapest bulbs to buy. So I took the bulb out, and I thought maybe a wire had come out in the back or something, so I unscrewed, I went to unscrew the back, and as I did, there was this large pop sound, and all of a sudden the bulb flew across the room, and there was lots of red everywhere. There was lots of red, and I looked down at my finger, and it was bleeding pretty badly. A lot of blood. So I ran out of the room and called out to Mel, like, Mel, I've cut myself, help, there's lots of blood. And she knows me well enough now to think that I'm joking with quite a lot of the time, so she came walking out like, what have you done? Have you just scratched yourself? Oh my god. And she looked at the floor and there was this blood trail of where I'd gone, and I'll put a picture up of what the wound looks like. The picture doesn't really do justice to how much blood and how deep this cut was. You can kind of maybe see like there we go, that's kind of how it's all wrapped up now. It really hurts. So anyway, I was losing blood quite quickly from this. We wrapped it up in a towel and it was like, right, let's go to A&E, because this was a Sunday evening, so nothing was open. My plan was just, let's go get some gauze or something, let's just wrap this thing up, it'll be fine, it'll stop bleeding eventually. It didn't. So we got to A&E in the end, to the hospital. We went in, Got seen by the first nurse, and I think the general impression is they underestimated quite how deep this cut was. They were like, yeah, we'll send you to minor injuries. It's about an hour wait, so go sit down, wait it out. So I did, and by that point this has started hurting. Like the shock of it just nulled the pain really at first, but after an hour or so, yeah, it was really starting to hurt, and I was getting really hungry as well. I was about to cook dinner for us, and then this obviously happened, so I didn't. About 50 minutes in, I sent Mel off to KFC and was just like, here's my card, go get us food. I should be done by the time you come back. And about 10 minutes after she left, they called me in to the room. And this is where it got a bit weird, because it was fine in there. They kind of prized the wound apart a little bit, which wasn't the nicest thing to see. And then went, yeah, okay, it's just like millimeters off doing permanent damage. You're okay. Let's wash it out. So they were like, this is going to sting. So they poured whatever it is they pour on the wound to clean it, and it didn't hurt, which was nice. I was like, yeah, that's fine. And they went, we're going to do it again. I was like, yep, that's fine. Crack on. Yep, didn't hurt. That's cool. Pour this stuff on. And as they poured the stuff on, my head just went. And I can't even explain it. I couldn't stand. And I was like, oh, I need to sit down. And last thing I remember is the doctor saying, you're all right. You're okay. Next thing I know, I'm in a deep sleep, and all I can hear is just voices around me, just people talking, and in my head my eyes are still shut, and in my head I'm just like, I'm trying to sleep. For God's sake, will you all shut up? What's all this noise? I thought I was in bed, and then after a few seconds, eyes are still shut. I'm like, hang on a minute, this doesn't feel like bed. Am I still on holiday? Like, what's going on here? And I open my eyes, and there's just 7 doctors just staring down, 7 doctors, nurses just staring down at me, and it's like, oh crap. So yeah, I fainted. I actually, first time in my life, properly fainted, and it was the weirdest experience I've ever had. The weirdest one. I can't explain it. I got back up to the chair, and I felt like I was going to go again. I was sweating, I felt sick, I was dizzy, I couldn't get my head up right. And the first thing I did was ring Mel, and I was like, Mel, yeah, I fainted, bring the KFC now, because I needed food big time. And the doctor was like, you didn't tell me you were bad with looking at blood. And I'm like, I wasn't. Like, I've taken pictures of the wound. Like, I thought the wound was cool. Like, I was quite impressed with how much blood there was. That wasn't it. And apparently it was blood loss. Apparently I'd lost more blood than they thought I had, mixed with being hungry, and it caused me to faint. But the good news is the doctor said I did faint very gracefully. Apparently I went down like a graceful swan and just lied on the floor for a few seconds, apparently, but it felt like a lot longer. But yeah, if you've ever fainted, let me know your faint stories, because it was the weirdest thing, just going from being awake to being in a deep sleep like that. I can't really click that loudly because finger. But yeah, I just thought I'd share that story. So I got home, and the first thing I did was edit the review and upload it. And I don't really remember doing it because I was very much out of it for the rest of that night. It was about 9:30 it happened, and yeah, came back, edited the review, put it up. So the House and the Clock in the Walls video, if the edits are a bit weird, if it's not the best editing I've ever done, that's why, because I still don't remember doing it and I haven't watched it back. So yeah, apologies for that one, and apologies for the fact the light's not as good as it was. But I just thought I'd tell you that story because sometimes it's nice to share. Sometimes it's nice to give you guys an insight into who I am, really, the things that I do and the stupid things I get myself into. So yeah, have you ever fainted? Let me know. But that was my review for The Predator, so thank you very much for watching this. Do hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Look out for more reviews coming soon, including A Simple Favour, American Vandal and Iron Fist. A quick update on episode by episode for Buffy Season 4. That's going to be coming next week now. My plan was to do that Sunday night as well, but obviously things got in the way. And there's so many videos to do this week, I just haven't got the time, but that will be up again on Monday, and it will be weekly again after that. So apologies if you're waiting for that one, but it is on the way. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.